Welcome to the second module of optical system considerations. We were seeing about the parameters which has to be considered for the fiber source and the detector. So we saw all these parameters. So regarding your detectors, we saw about responsivity, efficiency, wavelength, and then efficiency and wavelength, and then about the operating speed, and then sensitivity and the noise figure. So now let's discuss about how to design the performance of a fiber link. So the performance of the fiber link, it is done by two things, that is one by the link power budget or power budget. The next is about rise time budget or bandwidth budget. So in this two things we can discuss about how we decide the performance of a fiber link. So coming to the link power budget. So in this link power budget, the picture that is which is showing the optical power loss model. So where are the power it has been lost in that optical system. So we can see a transmitter in the left side and receiver in the right side, and we can see that this we already know that as distance increases we will place many number of repeaters, and in between that your optical fiber will be there from the transmitter to the receiver. So though these fibers are transmitted, that is are manufactured with longer distances, it cannot be manufactured for very long distances, that is up to 1 lakh kilometer you can't generate a fiber. So in that sense, if there is any problem with the optical fiber, then there will be any breakage, means you will have loss of signal. So you will this loss of the signal, when it is detected, what people do to repair this is, that is they will cut this fiber at that end and they will connect it again, that is do this splicing and connecting, etc. And once they do this, any breakage in this fiber and the leakage of the optical signal, that will be rectified. So for that we have to break this optical fiber in between, and sometimes these things has to be done. So there will be connectors and splices in between the distances of this fiber. So when these connectors splices are present, this will introduce some loss in this optical communication system. So now in this link power budget, when we calculate about all the loss which is happening in the optical system, we have to add these losses also with the optical link. So for optimizing this link power budget, an optical power loss model has to be included. So with this, in this diagram you can see many number of connectors are there and splices are there. The losses in the connectors, it is denoted by LC, and these are the losses at connectors, and the losses in the splices are LSP, and the losses in the fiber, general other losses, that is due to attenuation, etc., those losses are denoted by alpha F. So these are the parameters which that is parameters regarding the losses in an optical communication system. So these losses will be included when we calculate the power budget of a optical system. Now coming to the losses. So all the losses from the sources to detector, it comprises the total loss in the system. So totally from the transmitter, receiver, and then in the connectors, splices, then attenuation, all the cumulative effect, it gives the total loss in the system, that is denoted by the parameter PT. And the link power margin, it considers the losses due to the component aging and due to temperature fluctuations. So because of all this it will happen. So usually a link margin of 6 to 8 dB is considered while estimating the link power budget. So the total optical loss is equal to connector loss plus splicing loss plus fiber attenuation plus the system margin, which is denoted by Pm. So the total power PT is equal to twice the connector loss, that is one connector at the transmitter and one connector at the receiver, and in between that how much number of splices which we have. So depending on that, and your L, capital L, it is the transmission distance, so alpha F into capital L. So the alpha F is due to the losses due to the fiber attenuation. So plus system margin. So all this cumulatively it comprises the power, total power loss. So coming to the rise time budget. So rise time budget, it gives the important information for a initial system design. So rise time budget analysis, it determines the dispersion limitation of an optical fiber link. So total rise time of a fiber link, it is the root sum square of the rise time of each contributor to the pulse rise time degradation. So you include n number of things, means it is up to n. So it has been marked with dots. So T system equals square root of TR1 square plus TR2 square plus TR3 square. So the summation of I equals 1 to n, totally the TRI square, the square root of it. So this gives the square root value. So this is the total rise time for the system. The link components, it must be switched fast enough and the fiber dispersion must be low enough to meet the bandwidth requirements of the application. Adequate bandwidth for a system can be assured by developing a rise time budget. So as the light sources and detectors has a finite response time to the inputs, the device does not turn on or turn off instantaneously. The device does not turn on or turn off instantaneously. So the rise time and fall time, it determines the overall response time, and that will decide the resulting bandwidth. So connectors, couplers and splices do not affect the system speed. They need not to be accounted in the rise time budget, but they appear in the link power budget because there the losses should be included. So in link power budget we include connectors, couplers and splices, but in case of rise time budget we don't include that. The four basic elements that contributes to the rise time are a transmitter rise time, a model dispersion rise time of the fiber, it is denoted by T mod, and a transmitter rise time, it is denoted by Tx in the suffix, and then group velocity dispersion, that is denoted by GVD. So GVD rise time, TGVD, and receiver rise time, TRX. So these are the times, four rise times which we include in the system. So rise time due to modal dispersion, that will be given in the equation as T mod equals 440 divided by Bm, which is again equal to 440 L into Q by B naught, where your Bm is the bandwidth in megahertz and L, capital L, is the length of the fiber in kilometers, and Q is a parameter ranging between 0.5 and 0.5 and 1, and B naught is a bandwidth of 1 kilometer length fiber. Next is about the rise time due to group velocity dispersion. So it is denoted by TGVD. So TGVD equals D square sigma lambda square capital L square. So D is the dispersion. So sigma lambda is the half power spectral width of the source, and L is the length of the fiber. And receiver front end rise time, it is denoted in nanoseconds. So TRX equals 350 by BRX. So BRX is the 3 dB bandwidth of the receiver and it is denoted by megahertz. So the total rise time of a fiber link, which is the summation of all these rise times. That is the 4 rise times: the T transmit, T modal dispersion rise time, group velocity dispersion rise time, and receiver rise time. So all the 4, it gives the total rise time of the fiber link. So T sys equals T transmit square plus, so substituting all the individual values, that is substituting your T mod, it is 440 LQ by B naught square, plus your TGVD is D square sigma lambda square L square, plus your T receive is 350 by B or X. So all these are the values for the T system. The square root of all these 4 values gives the total rise time of the system. Next, we can discuss about the wavelength division multiplexing. So the technology of using multiple optical signals combining a number of wavelengths over a single fiber. This is called as wavelength division multiplexing. So let's see about the WDM optical network, which divides the vast transmission bandwidth available on a fiber into several smaller capacity channels, different smaller capacity channels, but it should not have any overlapping in their wavelengths. So non-overlapping bandwidths for each channel should be present, and each of these channels, it can be operated at a moderate bit rate, that is from 2.5 to 40 GB per second, and each of these channels corresponds to a different carrier wavelength. Channel spacing or God band in WDM. So in WDM networks, each signal on a fiber is given a fixed bandwidth. To avoid the interference between these signals, a fixed spacing is maintained between the signals using the adjacent bandwidths, and it's called as God bands. The signal bandwidth is equal to 10 gigahertz, and the spacing between the channels is chosen 100 gigahertz. So these are this diagram, it shows the channels on a fiber, and the signal bandwidth we can see it is marked in this rectangular pattern, that is as a chart, and the gap between this, it is 100 megahertz. So 193.3 is the first channel, means your 193.4 is the second bandwidth, the second channel which you choose. So the God band is the spacing between these two frequencies, and that will be maintained to avoid the overlapping of these frequencies. So that helps to avoid the data overlapping over it. And now we can see about the wavelength division multiplexing, that is the transmitter 1, transmitter 2. You can see in n number of transmitters are there. Then the wavelength multiplexer, which will multiplex the signals, all the wavelengths, and will be transmitting it to a single channel, that is a single optical fiber. So the signal will be amplified using the optical amplifier and is transmitted through this optical fiber to the receiver. So through all the distances, and once it reaches the optical receiver, the signal is again amplified, and now it is splitted into different wavelengths by the wavelength demultiplexer. So now each wavelength represent each signal and is received by the each receiver. So n number of receivers are there, and each receive the signal in the particular wavelengths. So optical signals of wavelengths 1300 to 1300 nanometer can propagate without interfering with each other. Each input is generated by a separate optical source with a unique wavelength. And the optical multiplexer, it couples the light from individual sources to the transmitting fiber. And by the receiving side, an optical demultiplexer will be required to separate these different carriers in different wavelengths before the photo detection of the individual signal. So to prevent spurious signals to enter into the receiving channel, the demultiplexer must have narrow spectral operation width with sharp wavelength cutoffs, so that the acceptable limit of crosstalk is minus 30 dB. So the important features of WDM. So capacity upgrade, since each wavelength supports independent data rate in Gbps. And regarding transparency, the WDM can carry fast asynchronous, slow synchronous, and synchronous analog and digital data. Wavelength routing. Link capacity and flexibility can be increased by using multiple wavelengths. So all the number of wavelengths, it has to be routed through the single optical fiber. Next is wavelength switching. That is, a WDM can add or drop the multiplexers and cross connects and wavelength converters, so that it can be switched between the different wavelengths. So coming to the passive components, what we have in the WDM. So for implementing a WDM, various passive and active components are required to combine, distribute, and isolate and to amplify the optical power at different wavelengths. The passive components are mainly used to split or combine the optical signals. So these passive components that operates in optical domains, and passive components don't need any external control for their operation. The passive components are fabricated by using optical fibers by planar optical waveguides. The commonly required passive components are N cross N couplers, power splitters, power taps, and star couplers. More passive components are derived from basic star couplers. So star coupler can perform both combining and splitting of the optical power. So star coupler is a multiple input and multiple output port device. So coming to the dense wavelength division multiplexing, which is DWDM. So DWDM is a data transmission technology with very large capacity and efficiency, where multiple data channels of optical signals are assigned different wavelengths and are multiplexed onto one fiber. So dense WDM will have more capacity than the normal wavelength division multiplexing, so which will increase the capacity of WDM. So DWDM system, it consists of again the transmitters, multiplexers, optical amplifiers, and multiplexers. So all these components are present in the wavelength division multiplexing also. So it uses a single mode fiber to carry multiple light waves of different frequencies. And DWDM system, it uses erbium doped fiber amplifiers, that is EDFA, for its long haul applications, and to overcome the effects of dispersion and attenuation, channel spacing of 100 GHz is used. So this is a diagram which shows the DWDM system. So you can see different channels are allotted. So n number of channels are the allotted transmitters which use different wavelengths. So lambda 1, lambda 2 up to lambda n. So you can transmit video, audio, text, any data through these transmitters. So n channels are present. So the DWDM multiplexer will handle all these channels and will be transmitting it through the single optical fiber. So in that all the wavelengths are traveling. So n number of wavelengths, that's your lambda 1, lambda 2, all the wavelengths are being transmitted through this fiber, and then it reaches the amplifiers. So amplifiers will enhance or amplify the power of the optical signal traveling through the fiber. So in the receiving side, again, the DWDM demultiplexer will receive all these signals and split into different wavelengths. So receiver 1 will be receiving the wavelength 1. So all the wavelengths will be received by the individual receivers. So this is the data output which we receive from the receivers. Passive DWDM. So passive DWDM systems, it will not have any active components. The line functions only due to the optic budget of the transceivers used. No optic signal amplifiers and dispersion compensators are used. So passive DWDM system will have a high channel capacity and potential for expansion, but the transmission distance is limited to the optical budget of the transceivers used. And the main application of passive DWDM system is metro networks and high-speed communication lines with the high channel capacity. So this is the diagram which shows a DWDM. So you can see the DWDM transmitters, that is which will also act as a receiver. So it's mentioned as transceivers. So 1, 2, so up to n number. So how much we are going to upgrade according to that. So here up to 20 channels has been shown. So all are transmitted through the multiplexers and everything is traveling through a one fiber. So this fiber is having now 20 duplex channels. So duplex means it is having both the transmission and the reception at the same time for each channel. That is called as your duplex channels. So each wavelength which you transmit is received in the receivers. Next, coming to the active DWDM. So active DWDM systems, it is commonly referred to as a transponder based system. They offer a way to transport large amounts of data between the sites in a data center interconnect setting. The transponder takes the outputs of the SAN or the IP switch format and usually in a short wave 850 nanometer or a long wave 1310 nanometer format, and it converts them to an through an optical DWDM conversion. So optical to electrical, again to optical conversion. So OEO DWDM conversion. So when creating a long haul DWDM networks, several EDFA amplifiers are installed sequentially in the line, and the number of amplifiers is limited and it depends on the optical cable. The number of amplifiers is limited and depends on the optical cable type, channel count, data transmission. The number of amplifiers is limited and it depends on the optical cable type, channel count, data transmission rate of each channel and the permissible OSNR value. And regarding to the block diagram, so you can see this is a active DWDM block diagram. Here the number of channels, that is all are duplex, so both the transmission and reception is present. You can see number of EDFA, that is the ABM dope fiber amplifiers are present, and that will be amplifying the signal. So because of that we have the insertion loss of 20 dBs, and we have two optical fibers, one for the transmission and one for the reception. So coming to the optical devices or components. So regarding to the transmitter, so a transmitter is present which will convert the data into a modulated optical signal, and a receiver which convert a modulated optical signal to data. And in this transmitter and receiver only the electrical to optical conversion and optical to electrical conversion will be performed. So in the transmitter, the data that is in the form of electrical signal will be converted to the optical signal and is modulated and transmitted. And in receiver, the received optical signal will be converted to the electrical signal, that is the data. Then in multiplexer, it's used to combine multiple optical signals in different wavelengths and is being transmitted. And demultiplexer, it receives all these signals and it separates as a single optical signal, and it separates the signals having different carrier wavelengths, and routers to direct the signals from the source to the destination. And then add drop multiplexers are present to add new signals to the fiber and extract some signals. So these are the components which are present in a network. So coming to see about the optical network terminologies, and the terminologies are stations. So stations are devices that network subscribers used to communicate, and a network is a collection of interconnected stations, and a node is a point where one or more communication lines terminate, and a trunk is a transmission line that supports large traffic loads. The topology is the logical manner in which the nodes are linked together by information transmitting channels to form a network. So this is a diagram which shows, so you can see many number of stations or users are there. So in your first network we can see the nodes, and the lines which are connecting between the nodes are called as trunks, and it can switch over to any node, and this node will have switch which will be finding the routes between the transmitter and the receiver, and the routers will provide the routes between this transmission and the transmitter and the receiver. So in the network too, similarly many number of nodes and switches are present in each node. So between this router to router, a trunk, that is the line of connection between these two networks, is shown. So coming to the segments of a public network. So a local area network, it interconnects the users in a large room or work area or a department, a home, a building, an office, or a factory complex, or a group of buildings. So this LAN will connect all the data transmitting devices to a network. And a campus network, it interconnects several LANs in a localized area. A number of LAN will cumulatively connected to the campus network. And a metro network, it is a network which interconnect the facilities ranging from buildings located in several city blocks to an entire city and the metropolitan area surrounding it. So many number of networks from each cities will be connected. So a number of campus networks connected will form a metro network. And an access network, it encompasses connections that extend from a centralized switching facility to individual businesses, organizations, and homes. So in this diagram we can see a van which is only up to a distance of 50 kilometers. So many number of buildings they are connected, and which will be for long distances, and this trunks will be connecting over long distances. The next is again metro area networks which connects many central office switches, and they are connected, and trunks are connected to the main central switches. And access network, it is an example for a private optical network, and this distance which will be less than or equal to 20 kilometers, so which will have only copper fiber and then or wireless access links sometimes. So LAN area network, that is a which is small buildings will be connected, number of homes or buildings to a particular area, it will be connected, it is very less than 1 kilometer. So a number of LAN will be connected and will be connected to the switches through the links, and more than this will be connected again to a metropolitan area network. So many number of switches will be connected through long distance trunks, and all these will be connected, that is to a wide area network. So this wide area network will be connected between any number of cities and number of cities cumulatively. So coming to the optical layer, we have many layers in the OSI model, that is open system interconnection. In this, the physical layer is the basic layer in which the bits, the data will be transmitted in forms of bits. So this is the physical medium. So here our physical medium is the optical fiber. Only through that your optical signal is traveling. So this optical layer is a wavelength based concept, and it lies just above the physical layer. And the physical layer provides a physical interconnection between two nodes. So between the two nodes, a optical fiber is present. That is the physical interconnection between the two nodes. The optical layer, it provides a light path services over that link, and the optical layer processes which include wavelength multiplexing, adding and dropping wavelengths, and support of optical switching. So this diagram, it shows the physical layer and the optical layer, and you can see the interconnection between the nodes. So here all these are the wavelength channels with the different wavelengths. So here it shows the optical fiber links, and each node, that is the SONET or STH nodes. So coming to the SONET, that is synchronous optical networks.